Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're heading into some really murky waters, tackling one of the most persistent and just deeply unsettling maritime mysteries out there. It's basically a ghost story on the high seas that's baffled people for, decades. We're talking about the SS Ourang Medan. Just try to picture this. A faint, kind of garbled distress call comes over the radio waves. Ships respond. Find this vessel just adrift. Looks okay from the outside. But then a boarding party goes over and they find the entire crew dead, like frozen, with these horrific expressions of terror on their faces. No clear cause of death. And then, get this, before they can really figure anything out, the ship just explodes, sinks, takes all its secrets down with it. It's a properly chilling image, isn't it? So for this deep dive, our mission is to, unpack the story, look at the scarce accounts we actually have, explore the theories, some grounded, some really out there. We'll dissect the so-called evidence the believers point to, but then, ground ourselves in the more logical counter-arguments. And maybe think about why this specific terrifying story has such a grip on us. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with the core story, the legend itself. I mean, it really does sound like something from a horror movie. So the scene is the vast waters of Southeast Asia, specifically the Strait of Malacca. The year, it gets a bit fuzzy. Sometimes you see 1940, sometimes 47, sometimes 48, but June 1947 seems to be the date people mention most often. Right, so the legend kicks off with these frantic Morse code messages. Garbled, hard to make out. They were reportedly picked up by various ships listing posts, most famously an American merchant ship, the SS Silver Star. And these messages, supposedly from a Dutch ship called the Ourang Medan, were absolutely chilling. They basically said, SOS from Ourang Medan, we float, all officers including captain dead in chart room and bridge, possibly whole crew dead, just like that. And then a second message, even worse, I die. Then, just silence, nothing.
Which is incredibly dramatic, even for an SOS, wouldn't you say? That I die.
Oh, absolutely. Very cinematic. So the SS Silver Star was the closest ship around. It immediately changed course to help out. When they got to the coordinates, they found the Ourang Medan just drifting. Seemed undamaged. Sea was calm. No smoke. Nothing obvious.
Right. Looks normal from a distance.
Exactly. But when the boarding party cautiously went aboard, what they found was profoundly disturbing. The entire crew, captain, officers, everyone, apparently even the ship's dog, all dead.
Everyone.
Everyone. Bodies scattered across the decks, in the bridge, chart room, engine room, galley, everywhere.
Okay, and the state of the bodies. That's the really key part of the legend, isn't it?
That's the truly macabre bit. They were purportedly found in these bizarre, contorted poses. Faces twisted into what are described as grotesque masks of terror.
Right. Mouths wide open like screaming.
Exactly like silent screams. Eyes wide, staring blankly up at the sky or the ceiling. Many supposedly had their arms stretched out as if, trying to fend something off.
Something unseen.
Yeah, an unseen horror. But here's the kicker. No visible injuries, no signs of a struggle, no blood, no bullet holes, nothing. It's as if they had all just dropped dead instantly from overwhelming fear or maybe shock.
And there were other strange details reported too, right? Below deck.
Yes. The air below deck was described as unusually cold, despite being in the tropics. And there was this strange, kind of noxious smell hanging in the air.
Making the rescuers feel uneasy, even sick.
Yeah, exactly. So the Silver Star crew starts getting ready to maybe tow the Ourang Medan back to port. But then wisps of smoke start coming up from the cargo hold. Number 4 hold, specifically, is often mentioned.
Okay, so something's happening down there.
Right. They try to investigate, but before they really can, there's this sudden, huge explosion, rips the ship apart.
Wow.
And it sinks fast, like within minutes, taking the bodies, the ship, any possible clues straight to the bottom of the ocean.
And that vanishing act right there, just as help arrives, it almost creates the mystery, doesn't it? It seals it, leaves this huge unanswered question.
It really does. That sudden destruction, it leaves this perfect vacuum that just invites speculation. And that's exactly why this story didn't just fade away. It sort of bloomed into this full-blown conspiracy theory. And that's where things get, really interesting for our deep dive.
Yeah, because the lack of any clear official explanation, why did the crew die like that? Why did the ship explode? That becomes the primary fuel. If officials aren't talking or can't explain it,
then people will come up with their own explanations, right? And the story itself taps into some really deep fears, abandoned ships, ghost ships.
That uncanny silence of death at sea, it primes the imagination for something sinister, something malevolent.
Definitely. And it also plays right into that classic trope.
Yeah.
The ship secretly carrying something dangerous. Illegal cargo, experimental tech, Something hidden?
It's a staple of maritime lore and thrillers for a reason, and the timing, too, is crucial here.
The historical context.
Exactly. The late 1940s. Right after World War II, start of the Cold War. It was a period just buzzing with secret military projects, atomic development, intense scientific experimentation.
And loads of government secrecy.
Precisely. So the idea of a ship carrying some top-secret, dangerous cargo from that era, it doesn't sound completely outlandish to people thinking conspiratorially. It feels plausible, almost.
Right. And then you add the fact that there aren't really any solid official records, like you mentioned Lloyd's Register earlier.
Yeah, no ship named Ourang Medan listed for 1947. The dates of the incident itself vary wildly in different accounts.
And for a believer, that lack of records isn't just, oh, maybe the story isn't quite right. It's seen as proof.
Proof of deliberate erasure, a cover-up. If something really sensitive happened, a secret weapon test gone wrong, maybe alien contact, a deadly bioagent, you would cover it up, wouldn't you?
You absolutely would. The lack of evidence becomes the evidence of the cover-up. It's a self-sealing narrative.
Exactly. It neatly explains why there's no official story.
Okay, so let's dig into the specific theories then. What are people actually proposing happened, assuming there was a cover-up? The most common ones seem to revolve around dangerous cargo, right?
That's definitely the most popular category, yes. The idea that the ship was carrying something volatile, illegal, or experimental that went catastrophically wrong.
So theory number one, chemical weapon leak. Maybe transporting nerve gas left over from the war, or some new experimental poison.
Right. The idea is a leak occurs, maybe the containers rupture in rough seas or due to poor storage, causes rapid paralysis, convulsions, death.
And that could explain the lack of external marks and maybe even the terrified expressions, right? Asphyxiation, muscle spasms.
Potentially, yes. Though pathologists might argue about the exact presentation, but the theory holds that the cover-up was to hide this illegal transport or secret military program. The explosion. Maybe deliberate scuttling to destroy evidence or a secondary chemical reaction.
Okay, similar vein but slightly different. Biological weapon, like a deadly virus or bacteria getting loose.
Yeah, carrying some highly virulent pathogen, maybe for research, maybe as a weapon, a breach occurs, rapid infection, maybe a hemorrhagic fever or something attacking the nervous system.
Again, explaining the quick deaths and maybe the terror.
That's the idea. And the motive for the cover-up is huge. Preventing panic, avoiding accusations of violating treaties, stopping a potential pandemic.
Makes sense. Then there's the nuclear angle, radioactive material.
Or even early atomic weapon components. This was the dawn of the nuclear age, remember? So maybe transporting uranium, plutonium, something fissile.
And a leak or some kind of critical event happens.
Could cause acute radiation sickness, rapid death, potentially without obvious external signs initially, but horrific internal damage. The cover-up would be to hide a secret nuclear program or prevent an international incident if fissile material was lost.
And the explosion could be, what, the material itself reacting or, again, deliberate?
Could be either, maybe a conventional explosion to destroy the evidence, or perhaps even a small nuclear event if weapon components were involved, though that's more speculative.
What's common across these is that invisible killer idea, isn't it? Gas, germs, radiation, something you can't see that causes this horrific death.
Exactly. It taps into those deep anxieties about unseen threats, things beyond our immediate control or understanding.
And there's even a simpler version, right? Just regular explosives or volatile chemicals, not necessarily weapons grade.
Sure, maybe unstable industrial chemicals, old munitions being disposed of improperly, something reacts due to heat, moisture, rough seas.
Causes a sudden release of toxic fumes, or maybe a shock wave, or just consumes all the oxygen instantly.
Plausible ways to cause rapid death without necessarily leaving obvious wounds. And the covered-up could be simpler too, avoiding lawsuits, corporate scandal, tighter regulations. Still involves secrecy, though.
Okay, so those are the sort of, let's say, material, dangerous cargo theories. But this being the Ourang Medan, the explanations definitely don't stop there, do they?
Oh, not at all. When you have a mystery this strange, with elements like the faces of terror and the sudden disappearance, it's almost inevitable that more exotic theories emerge.
Things get weird.
Things get weird. You venture into the truly fantastical.
Aliens?
Yep. Alien involvement or extraterrestrial cargo. Maybe the ship was transporting recovered alien tech, or even a being, alive or dead, or some unknown alien substance.
And the deaths. Caused by what? An alien defense system? Contamination? A psychic blast?
Take your pick, really. If you accept the premise of alien cargo, the cause of death could be anything beyond our current understanding. And the cover-up? Well, that would be the ultimate secret hiding proof of extraterrestrial life.
Wow. Okay, pushing it even further.
Yeah.
Paranormal stuff, curses, demons.
That's another branch. The ship was cursed, maybe it sailed through haunted waters, or the cargo itself contained some malevolent artifact.
So the crew died literally from fright. Soul snatched, tormented.
That's the gist of it, sheer supernatural terror. And the cover-up would be to prevent mass panic or perhaps hide the fact that, literal evil exists.
And I've even heard theories about dimensional weirdness, like a time slip.
Yeah, entering some kind of spatial or temporal anomaly, like the Bermuda Triangle, but in the Strait of Malacca, causing a catastrophic breakdown of reality, maybe instant aging, instant death, covered up again for secret study or to start public fear.
It's fascinating how the explanations escalate from secret chemicals all the way to rips in reality.
It shows how badly the human mind wants an answer, even a fantastical one, when faced with something so inexplicable. And notice, all these theories, from nerve gas to demons, they all rely on that core belief.
Conspiracy of silence.
Exactly. Deliberate suppression of evidence, controlling the story, claiming the lack of records is the proof, discrediting anyone who might have known something. The ambiguity itself becomes part of their narrative.
That's a really key point. So, for the people who truly believe in an Ourang Medan conspiracy, what specific things in the story do they point to as their evidence? Besides the lack of records, I mean.
Well, the primary piece is definitely the horrific state of the bodies. Those contorted faces, the wide eyes, the outstretched arms, they see that as undeniable proof.
Proof of something truly awful and instantaneous happening.
Right, something insidious. And tied to that is the lack of a visible cause of death. No wounds, no struggle marks. That immediately points them towards an invisible killer gas, radiation, maybe even a paranormal force.
Okay, what else?
The I die message. They interpret that not as melodrama, but as a genuine, final, terrified gasp from someone witnessing the horror firsthand.
Chilling if true.
Then there's the reported noxious odor and the unnatural cold below decks. That's seen as physical evidence of whatever killed them, the leaking gas, the alien presence, whatever. An anomalous environmental effect.
And the grand finale.
The sudden explosion and sinking. For proponents, that's the ultimate smoking gun. It screams cover-up.
They blew it up to hide the evidence.
Exactly. It neatly destroys everything just before it can be properly investigated. And as you said, the lack of official records seals the deal for them, proof of erasure.
Some even argue the legend itself. The fact that the story persists despite being unofficial is a kind of evidence, like a truth leaking out over time.
Yeah, a testament to its underlying reality. And finally, that international mixed Dutch ship, Malaysian waters, American rescuers, makes it easy to imagine a complex cover-up involving multiple governments or agencies. More players means more potential secrets.
It's a compelling narrative package, you have to admit, even if it relies on interpreting absence and strangeness as proof.
It absolutely is, but does raise that fundamental question. Are we looking at evidence of a conspiracy or just evidence of a really weird, possibly embellished story?
Right. So let's pivot to the skeptics. What do the mainstream explanations say? Why do most historians or maritime experts doubt the dramatic version of the story?
Well, the biggest single factor, overwhelmingly, is that lack of official verification we keep coming back to.
No ship registration.
Correct. No official record of an Ourang Medan in Lloyd's Register or similar shipping directories for the relevant period. That's a massive problem for a supposed ocean-going freighter.
And no incident reports either.
None. No official reports from naval authorities, maritime safety bodies, coast guards, insurance companies, nothing that verifies the distress calls, the discovery by the Silver Star, or the subsequent explosion and sinking. The entire event is absent from official maritime records.
That's pretty damning.
It is. Plus, the inconsistencies within the legend itself, the varying dates, 1940, 47, 48, the slight differences in the messages or the details of the discovery that's very characteristic of how urban legends evolve over time through retelling, not how factual incidents are typically documented.
And where did the story even come from originally?
That's also revealing. The earliest verifiable print mention seems to be a 1952 article in the Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council, which was a U.S. Coast Guard publication.
Okay, sounds official.
Sort of, but that article explicitly cites its source as unreliable. A small booklet or article passed along, possibly originating from a 1953 German book called Das Totenschiff in der Südsee by a writer named Otto Mielke.
And Milky.
He was known for writing rather sensationalized, dramatic maritime tales. Not exactly a stickler for historical accuracy. So the story's traceable origins point towards journalistic embellishment or even an outright hoax rather than solid eyewitness accounts.
So the foundations are shaky, to say the least. But what if something happened, just not as dramatic? Are there plausible, non-conspiratorial explanations for some elements?
Absolutely. If we assume maybe there was an incident, but it got exaggerated, you could look at things like carbon monoxide poisoning.
From what? A faulty engine, a smoldering fire somewhere.
Exactly. CO is odorless, colorless, deadly. It could potentially incapacitate and kill a crew relatively quickly without leaving obvious external marks.
Okay, that's plausible. What else?
Hydrogen sulfide, H2S poisoning. If the ship was carrying certain types of cargo, maybe organic matter decomposing or certain industrial chemicals, H2S gas could build up. It's highly toxic, can cause rapid collapse, respiratory failure, and it often has a characteristic rotten egg smell, which might align with the noxious odor reports.
Interesting. What about the explosion?
An unforeseen chemical reaction in the cargo is definitely possible. Many non-weapon chemicals can become unstable or react violently under the right conditions: heat, moisture, contamination. That could explain a fire and explosion, though it's less likely to cause the simultaneous instant death of the entire crew beforehand.
Right, and those faces of terror. How do skeptics explain that?
Mostly as artistic license or embellishment. That specific uniform image of grotesque terror across an entire crew is classic horror story stuff. While asphyxiation or certain poisons can cause convulsions or facial distortion, the universal cinematic mask of terror described is probably an exaggeration added later to make the story more compelling.
Makes sense. And the convenient explosion destroying all evidence.
Yeah, that's almost too neat, isn't it? From a skeptic's viewpoint, it feels like a narrative device to ensure the mystery remains unsolvable. Real maritime accidents, even catastrophic ones, usually leave more debris, more records, more traceable evidence than just vanishing completely.
And the I die message.
Highly suspect. Morse code operators are trained for brevity and clarity in emergencies. Standard procedure would be call signs, location, nature of distress. I die is just incredibly melodramatic. It sounds like something invented for a story, not a real distress call.
So really it boils down to a lack of credible evidence supporting the sensational parts of the story.
Precisely. It's the difference between a tantalizing mystery fueled by spooky details and a verifiable event documented through reliable sources. For the Ourang Medan, we have plenty of the former, but virtually none of the latter. The absence of evidence in this case strongly suggests the absence of the event as described.
Yet, despite all that debunking, the Ourang Medan remains incredibly popular. It's one of the great maritime mysteries people talk about. Why do you think this specific story has such staying power? Why does it still grip us?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's the sheer allure of the unexplained. The core story, even stripped down, is just so bizarre. Humans seem to hate an explanatory vacuum, and this story leaves a huge one. A wild conspiracy theory fills that void perfectly.
And the setting helps too, right? The ocean.
Definitely. That primal fear of the ocean, its vastness, its isolation, its potential dangers, it amplifies our anxieties about the unknown, about forces we can't control. A ghost ship story set there just resonates deeply.
Plus that element of distrust of authority.
Absolutely. Especially given the post-WWII Cold War context we talked about, people were, and still are, primed to believe in secret government experiments, dangerous classified cargo, corporate negligence, things that would necessitate a cover-up. The story fits neatly into that pre-existing suspicion.
And it's just a cracking good yarn, isn't it?
It really is. It has all the hallmarks of a powerful urban legend. That kernel of possible reality, the exaggerated, terrifying details, that sense of forbidden knowledge. It gets told and retold because it's compelling, scary, and memorable.
There's also that what-if factor, maybe.
Exactly. Even if you rationally think it's probably a hoax or exaggeration, the question, but what if it were true, is just profoundly unsettling. It pushes boundaries, makes you consider possibilities beyond the everyday.
And the fact that we can't definitively prove it never happened, because, well, you can't prove a negative easily.
Yeah.
That leaves a little crack open for the legend to live in.
Precisely. Debunkers point to the lack of evidence, the likely source, the inconsistencies. But because there isn't, say, a specific ship identified that had a mundane accident misinterpreted, there's still that tiny sliver of ambiguity for some, and the legend thrives in that ambiguity.
So the Ourang Medan conspiracy theory, it really is a powerful example of how we grapple with mystery, with horror, with the idea of hidden truths. It takes this chilling legend and wraps it up in a narrative of grand cover-up.
Yeah, and while, critical analysis strongly suggests it's mostly a sensationalized urban legend, no verifiable records, no solid evidence for the dramatic claims, the story itself, its power absolutely resonates. Its appeal really lies in tapping into those deep fears. The unknown, the invisible killer, distrust of power, and that chilling idea that the worst secrets are the ones that sink without a trace, leaving only whispers behind.
So as we navigate through all these strange stories and conspiracies, the Ourang Medan is a fascinating one to consider. Was it a real ship, carrying something too dangerous to reveal? Or is it maybe more of a cautionary tale, a really effective fabrication that just perfectly captures our modern anxieties about technology, secrecy, and the horrors that might just lurk beneath the surface of the world we think we know?
The definitive truth. Probably lost to time, or maybe it never existed in the first place.
But the chilling legend of the Ourang Medan, that continues to sail on, doesn't it? Right through the shadows of our collective imagination.